All right, and we are live for the Steelers Depot live stream here on Monday, July 13th. Let me pull up the stream on my phone and make sure you get it on your end as well, Dave, and we'll get things started. But how you doing, Dave?
I'm doing good. Happy Monday. Peace and love, and hello to everybody that's already in the chat here.
Yeah, got a good crowd on hand already. We have Mutated Genome, whose birthday today. So, chat, please wish Mutated Genome a very happy birthday. Steeler fan 1933 here. Same with the cool dude, Andrew B. David O, our very own David O, I assume. Mutated Genome also has given us a $1 super chat. So, thank you so much for that. And he asks our first question of the day. And I'll let you answer this, Dave, because you wrote about this in a really good article today on Steelers Depot, which I'll pull up fully here for you guys while I tweet out the link. Mutated Genome says, Alex and Dave, what's with Bud Dupree's franchise tag grievance? I'm sure it would mean a bigger check for Bud, but were you surprised he did this? Do you think the front office expected this? Dave, your take.
Let's see. What order should I answer that in?
Well,
Did
are you
what is
surprised
the
Dupree did this? Or I'm
No,
sorry.
no, I'm
Okay, the
not.
first question. Okay.
Okay, let's start with this. The difference in the franchise tag amount between a linebacker and a defensive end this year is almost $2 million. It's $15.828 million for a linebacker, which they don't classify. They don't have outside or inside linebacker. They just classify you as a linebacker.
Hmm.
Okay, especially if you're listed as say an outside linebacker in a 3-4. And you in their eyes, you might as well be a inside off the ball linebacker, and I'm talking about in the league's eyes when it comes to the franchise tag amount number, or you might as well be an outside linebacker in a 4-3 for all they care, as long as you have that LB next to your name there. Okay, so the franchise tag amount for a linebacker this year is 15.828 million, whereas the franchise tag amount for a defensive end is $17.788 million here. Now, the thing that Dupree's grievance is, and first and foremost, if any of you listening to this are upset with Dupree for filing this grievance, get over it. I mean, literally, he's not doing anything wrong here. All he's doing here is questioning. Said, look, this positional ranking thing that the NFLPA failed to solve for some reason in their last CBA negotiations is really antiquated in today's NFL. Basically, if you're on the outside in a 4-3 or a 3-4, you should be classified as an edge. Quite honestly, that's the way we classify these kids coming out of college. Are
Hmm.
they're an edge? The only question is where do they better fit in a old school 4-3 system, or in really an old school 3-4 for all that matters. Now, today's NFL, you play so much sub package. All right, and so that means you're in the Steelers defense with so much sub package. Bud Dupree's basically a defensive end, in a 4-man front there. Uh, Long story, so I don't get kind of long winded here, which is obviously easy for me to do here. I think Bud's got a great case here. The only question is, and I put this in the post there, Alex, if you want to scroll down to the
Hmm.
chart there, the drop percentage is
Yep,
there. Now
that's the big one.
he was in coverage 8% of pass plays, and when you compare that to the 10, or really the top 8 defensive ends that are on this list here, the truly listed defensive ends, it's a little high. Now, in totality, he only dropped, or was only in coverage at like 40 something plays. Are you really going to dock a guy, a couple of $1 million for what equates to 40 something plays, which really a difference, really isn't 40 plays. It's whatever the next defensive end would have been. Okay, to me, that's kind of silly to do. Now, we saw with Matthew Judon of the Baltimore Ravens back in May. He also had a grievance. He and the Ravens, settled on the difference between the two franchise tag amounts. That was extremely fair to do, especially when Judon was in coverage more than Dupree even
By a
was.
lot, 20% according to the
Right,
numbers.
by a lot there. Long and short of it, Dupree has done nothing wrong here. He's got a good case sort of, unless you want to get in technicalities here with the coverage percentage there being a tad bit high than some of the other defensive ends. I expect the right thing to do here is for the two sides to negotiate and do what Judon and the Ravens did, and that's come to a compromise of a price tag between the 15 something million and the 17 something million.
Yeah, let me say hello to the chat here, and then I'll touch on what you said. Some new people joining the chat. Be sure to ask your skills questions below. We have Samantha and Brian and AJC and Mark and Jamal. We'll get to your questions here in a moment. But to circle back with Dupree, yeah, I have no problem with him doing this. It's his right to do that. The Steelers franchise tagged him, so they put Dupree in this place in the first place. So I have no issue with Dupree attempting to get classified as at the end. More to the point, do I think he's got a case, sort of, but I don't think it's going to be strong enough because while he's dropped a lot less than he has in the past, it is more than your traditional, typical defensive ends. But I think a wide enough margin that the technicality is going to matter in a grievance like this.
You're looking at a percentage of an extra nearly 5% from the next. Who is it? Everson
Hmm.
Griffin, I think, from Minnesota. But in totality, you're talking about not even. You're talking 29
I
snaps
know,
here.
but the
You
percentages
know.
are—it's all relative. I go off of the percent.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's the case, and if you know, to me, that's not. I think it would be wrong for the Steelers to fight hard for that. Now, obviously, do I think the Steelers have the slightly better case here? Yeah, but uh,
Hmm.
plain and simple. The right thing to do here is to settle on a price in between the two here. Now, once again, if people, I hear all kind of responses to this. Oh, Bud Dupree doesn't deserve this. The way he played in his first 3 years, he doesn't deserve this. It that doesn't matter one iota. That's not part of any grievance whatsoever. How he played and whether he deserves it on a performance level. It's all boils back down to where he lined up in the defense and what his really, the amount of times he was
Hmm.
used in coverage. Plain and simple, that's what it comes down to. If you think the Steelers made a wrong decision in placing the franchise tag on Bud Dupree, that's your prerogative. I highly advise you to write a strongly worded letter to the franchise if that's the case. Don't take this out on Dupree or classify him as being greedy here because Lord knows in the NFL, you got to get as much
Yep.
money as you can when you can get it. And if this means him being able to file agreements and being able to work out a deal where he gets up to nearly 2 more million. God bless him. Go get it.
Hmm.
And we'll see how this plays out. I will be surprised if the two don't meet in the middle here. That's my final assumption here.
Well, let me ask you this. You said it's the right thing for both sides to come together and compromise. What is the incentive for the Steelers to compromise here? If they feel like they're going to win this case or at least want to chance it.
To look good to future players and current players that they did the right thing.
But
Plain and
but
simple.
but to look good, what would be the consequence of them not looking good? Because the franchise tag's out of the player's control in the first place. It's not a thing that has to be agreed to ever at any point.
Just uncertainty in players, and man, I'm got drafted by the Steelers now, and they classify me as a 3-4 outside linebacker. If I play my butt off and I get tagged, I'm going to lose out on some money.
But it doesn't hurt the Steelers in any way. They're drafted. I mean, they're
Right.
stuck.
It's not going to hurt them. But here's the thing though. Uh, yeah, well, the thing that technically would hurt them is they would lose a couple more,
Well,
nearly
sure,
another
financially.
couple million in actually cash and salary cap space there.
Right. Sure. I mean, financially, of course, but like, it's not going to stop someone from getting drafted, or is it really going to stop someone
Oh
from
no,
signing with
no,
the team? I
but
really doubt it.
but I think if you're looking at it on what's the right thing from an organizational football aspect to do,
Hmm.
that's me in the
Okay.
middle.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, especially look. I mean, you already have an instance out there this offseason with the Ravens and Matthew Judon, you
Hmm.
know,
Sure. I'm not saying it couldn't
and
happen, but
right,
what I
right.
also wonder is just like, basically, I think if you want to compromise, it comes down to what is the likelihood you really bring Dupree back this year or after next season. If you actually think that's a possibility, then you probably want to compromise to have a better working
No, yeah,
relationship.
look, if you want to play hard ass here with him, yeah. I mean, if you want to play hardball and play it by the letter of law and think that you've got the better case here, by all means.
Well, it's not even that. It's just the perspective. Let's assume the Steelers are like Bud Dupree. This is going to be his last year in Pittsburgh. We're not going to be able to bring this guy back. Then I'm not going to do a compromise with him because he's walking anyway. So there's not going to be a conversation.
Okay, well,
It's not
if
even
that's
worth having the good faith there.
okay, if that's your view of not wanting to have the good faith because the guy's going to be gone, then that's your organizational prerogative.
But if they feel like they still have a really good shot to do a long term deal sometime before the 15th, which seems highly unlikely, or after this season, then you may want to do the compromise because it may make things easier and smoother whenever you go back to the negotiating table.
What would Dan Rooney do?
You're pulling the Dan Rooney card on me, Dave.
What would Dan Rooney do? We
Yeah,
all need those. We all need to wear those
wristbands.
rubber silicone wristbands with WW. Let's see. What would
DR.
WWDRD
Yeah,
on it?
yeah.
What would Dan Rooney do? And the answer to that is Dan Rooney would come to a compromise
hmm
with Bud Dupree and pay him. And you would agree with me on that, I'm
I
sure.
I would, and I'm not mad if they compromise. I'm fine with whatever happens. My feeling is the Steelers are probably going to win this grievance, and if that's their mindset as well, then they're probably going to be like, "Let's go to the grievance. Dupree filed it. We're just going to state our case, and we think we're going to win, and that'll save us some money." That's what I expect to happen, at least.
That's what you expect to happen. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I expect, but we'll see.
Does,
Because
does he have a good case? I mean, you know,
he has a case. I don't think it's good enough because at DN, if to be classified, there's a couple different things. Is everyone still views Dupree as an outside linebacker? He's probably called himself an outside linebacker. TJ Watt's considered an outside linebacker. And then more to the point, the drop rate is still too high, even if it's lowered. And plus, he barely ever plays with his hand down, which are like the two hallmarks of being a defensive end.
all right, we're going to argue about this
All
more on the
right.
podcast, Adam.
I look
So
forward to it.
let's let these people
All right.
off the hook here.
Yeah. All right. Some more questions here. This is from the cool dude. What do you think the Steelers will do with Mason Rudolph this season? The same thing I've been saying for a while now. And obviously, it's going to be more difficult to evaluate Mason Rudolph, assuming that there's either half a preseason or what I'm thinking, probably no preseason at all. And so the chance to evaluate him is going to be tougher. But he'll be the backup. He'll be the number two this year, for better or for worse. And hopefully, there's enough to evaluate him to know if he's really made serious strides from an obviously turbulent 2019 season.
Yeah, basically to be determined. All kind of what the things we've said, all off season here, and
hmm
not looking like he's going to get a long look or much opportunity to make that much of an impression, especially if preseason's cut in half or done away with altogether
Yep.
there. So, thank God at least they got some tape to go off of last year, and a lot of it. Unfortunately, it wasn't better than what it was.
hmm
There was a little bit to hang your hat on there in that Jets game there, but yeah, look, I mean, you still want to be able to see him be able to rebound of some sort in some capacity in some meaningful type situation this summer, and hopefully it ends there. You obviously don't want to get in a situation where Ben's injured and you have to see Mason do anything but kneel down a football
Right.
at some point during a game here. So it's going to be tough. It's one of those to be determined type situations right now, and I still stand by the fact that I will be surprised if they spend a first round draft pick on a quarterback
hmm
next year, plain and simple.
Yeah, I hear that. I think it's still too early to tell, but they may just punt on the year for Rudolph and just say we'll try to evaluate him next year. Who knows? Still a lot of uncertainty with the NFL upcoming. And the clock is ticking. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. By the way, I should mention we have giving away the James Conner book. I think we have one more left, so we're doing a James Conner Fears of Choice giveaway of that book at the bottom of the hour. First person to answer the Steelers trivia question will be the recipient of the book. If you've won before, you are not eligible. Just in fairness to let other people win it, so be prepared for that at 7:30. All right. Brian says, "Yo, Alex, my dad and I love the Benny Snell vid. Thank you, Brian. And your dad, you have the video up today. Benny Snell has all the traits to be a complete NFL back." That's a little different than me saying that he's going to be a number one feature Bell type. Obviously, I don't think the ceiling in terms of the talent is as high as Le'Veon Bell or even James Conner, but I think just ability to kind of do everything and do it pretty well, run, receive, and pass block. I think he showed that as a rookie, and that's one reason why I'm excited for Benny Snell in year two when we typically see those backs make a big jump like Le'Veon Bell year one to year two. And James Conner certainly was a totally different guy year one to year two. So check out that video if you have not already up on Steelers Depot. Samantha, I think I said hi to you earlier, but thank you for being here. Same with AJC. Andrew Mark Jamal says, "Dave, I took your advice and asked out my crush in person. Do you have any first date ideas?" It's probably been a while since you've had a first date, Dave, but congratulations, Jamal, for the person saying yes.
Yeah, congratulations. I'm not I'm not relatively sure what I did was dating.
Okay. Yeah, Jamal, maybe Dave's not the best person to answer this question.
Yeah, that was back when the Earth was still cooling there. So, Lord, I would be so lost, in today's world.
Dave on
Uh,
Tinder. That'd be fun.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not even sure how that would work these days. So, just be yourself. How about that?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's hard to really go a lot of places, but somewhere outside, probably your best bet right now,
Let
Jamal.
me tell you, women have great intuition. They can pick up the least littlest things. So just be yourself and try to have a good time. How's that for advice?
There you go. Greg Smith, first time chatter, huge fan. Alex and Dave, thank you, Greg. I appreciate you being here. And Brian also says, hope you're doing well. He says, also hope. And then he says, you're doing well, Dave, which I think is a hello and words of encouragement from Brian there. Andrew B., who's the most underrated starter on each side of the ball, both in real life and in Madden? I don't know. We'll see what the Madden ratings say. They're slowly being unveiled. That's a good question. I think for the offense, I've had a couple. I think it's easier for the offense than the defense. I'll lean Matt Filer over like James Washington, but what would you say, Dave, for most underrated starter on offense?
Yeah, I would probably say Filer. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's a fairly safe one there. For sure. I mean, look, I mean, this is a guy that who 2 years ago, who in the world dreamed
Mm-hmm.
that he would have the amount of what I would kind of quantify as quality starts at right tackle there. So, especially the kind of stops he had along the way as an undrafted free agent and out of Bloomberg College as well, really has overachieved. And now, keep your fingers crossed that hopefully he'll be able to overachieve at the left guard position too. So yeah, probably the most underrated, and you probably get even media guys around the league to start naming off guys on the Steelers offensive line, and many of them probably wouldn't even remember Filer's name, or he would
Mm-hmm.
be the last one on the list for them to name.
Right, right. And then defense, that one's tougher. Who's most underrated starter on defense? I mean, a Hilton? I don't know. I think people, Steeler fans at least, I think have come to appreciate Mike Hilton.
How about one Bud Dupree?
Oh, all right. I like that. Yeah, I mean, because he still gets a lot of crap from fans.
Yeah, he really does. Look, we haven't been drivers of this Bud Dupree bus, if you will, for the last couple years. But within that, we're not too proud to say that the guy really did a lot of good last year. And as Alex and I have said, really for a long time, not only in these chats but on the podcast as well too, you'd be hard pressed to find many true defensive ends or outside linebackers in this league that play to run
Hmm.
as good as he does there. So, because of how he's perceived, I think in the Steelers fan base alone, and yes, people will begrudgingly say, yeah, he had an okay season last year. He had a better than an okay season last year. So, because of that, I would say that probably the most underrated would be Bud Dupree right now.
I think that's a very good answer. Yeah, Dupree, as good as he was as a pass rusher, and that really changed the outlook on his season and helped get him the franchise tag. His run defense was even better. He's one of the best run setting edge rushers in the NFL.
You
Ducks.
know, one one
Okay.
one quick thing about the pass rushing last year as well too. They made really a concerted effort. I think as you go back through the all 22 on this, and look, and no doubt, T.J. Watt's your best pass rusher on the edge, right?
Yep.
So you're going to try to scheme up as much as possible you can to get TJ in one-on-one situations with the right tackle, correct?
They try. I mean, a lot of stuff gets slid to him, but yeah, I mean that's a goal.
Right, and in turn, a lot of what if you're going to overload and all like that, that's going to end up with some things sliding to Bud Dupree's side,
Hmm.
over to that side. Not trying to use that as well. He would have had more sacks or more pressures or what have you, but it's part of the scheme there. So he really has to take on a lot on his side there, more so than what I think a lot of people probably give him credit for. Once again, his pass rush plan, his overall plan, improved drastically last season, and his execution in counters as well.
And more power. Play with a lot more power. Saw that early. And I think him being healthy was a big key in that. Not having the torn pec and the elbow injury and all the stuff he's dealt with over the years. Duck Swagger asks, is there a possibility the NFL plays while college gets canceled, or do they come in a pair? No, I think they can be separate things. College is obviously very much at a tipping point right now. The NFL may meet them out there at some point, but two different things. Less players on the NFL, obviously, more structure. Obviously, it's a business through and through. College football is a business, but in a different sense, where the SEC and the Sun Belt are two totally different worlds. So I think the NFL's got a better chance to play than college football logistically. It's just a tighter group and maybe a little more well organized than the NCAA. But yeah, college football is in a really tough spot. Has there been any reporting on the SEC commissioners meeting today? What the results of that were? Do we know?
No, I thought I saw something where they're one of them on the Paul Feinberg show or Feinbaum show or something like that. Anyway, I think it's kind of to be determined right now that they're going
Okay.
to have to see some drastic reduction. I just hit. I mean, this just comes from like a Twitter headline is all, but I don't
Okay.
think they've made an official announcement. Yeah, I think they're still kind of in wait and see mode. I think the last I looked.
Last I checked, they were still meeting. The meeting had been going on for several hours, so big decisions upcoming, and hopefully we'll gain some more clarity on college football in the next couple of days. Pop345, do you think that the terrible defense of 2014 was fault of Dick LeBeau? I'm trying to think back to 2014. I mean, there was a talent issue, of course, and there was just, LeBeau's fault was just the cover three the offenses, I should say, evolving to beat cover three, where offenses were more willing to dink and dunk and nickel and dime you 5 yards at a time. Tom Brady was masterful at that, and the defense just became a little antiquated in that sense, where you couldn't just play soft zone coverage and expect to win. I mean, that was the big issue with Dick LeBeau.
That yeah, the move tight end,
Yeah.
the evolution of the move tight end, the reduction of the fullback, the getting away from the more so the heavy running on first down, and yeah, you pretty much said LeBeau had a lot of principles, there's a lot of zone in there, the skill set for a lot of those players, the Ike Taylors and all was the strength was to a zone type situation there and teams just all opposing offenses grew to better understand how to attack zone defenses, cover three specifically, those kind of things. And as I mentioned, the move tight end. Boy, what else in there? And when the Steelers did try to adjust at times and start and try to play more kind of man coverage, they weren't very good at disguising that stuff, and teams just learn to put their best player on a weakest player a lot of time or a weaker
hmm
corner and win that way with some quick like passes there. So
and they just didn't have the talent at corner. They're trying to play man coverage
right.
with Valentino Blake and Ross Cockrell, who's still he's bounced back. He's had a better end to his career, but early on was a young guy, and William Gay. I mean, obviously it's a stark contrast compared to that group versus Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson.
The old is way before your time, but what was it? The first video on MTV when MTV started was "Video Killed the Radio Star." Well, Rob Gronkowski killed the
He really did.
LeBeau defense. I mean that Gronkowski game with three touchdowns, what over William Gay, which there was some good coverage I thought on a couple of those William Gay touchdowns, but that kind of was kind of the beginning of the end, if you will, I think. But God bless Dick LeBeau. I'll tell you that. If there's
hmm
one guy you give me a choice to get locked in a room with for an hour and pick his brain solid, it
hmm
would probably be him.
Amen to that. Yeah, it's no slight against LeBeau. It's just the nature of the evolution of the game. It's crazy to see how much difference this defense looks, even from like Keith Butler's first and second year as DC. Compared to you could look at Keith Butler in 2015, even 2016, compare that to 2004. It was like the same defense, and now it is unrecognizable because it has become such a man heavy, and even the blitz schemes are different than they are today. Or they were back then.
And make no mistake, quality of talent, pedigree does not hurt.
It doesn't when you have literally your whole defense starters being first round picks. That does help a good bit as well, makes a DC look good. Ben says hello, says, hey, Dave and Alex. Hey, Ben, hope you're doing well. Hope you're
Hello,
staying
hello,
safe.
hello. Peace and
Samantha,
love to everybody that joined
mm-hmm.
us tonight.
Yep.
Thank you for coming in.
Be sure to ask your questions in the Steelers chat. Samantha Eckhorn asks, is it possible Dupree holds out like Bell? I think it's pretty unlikely Dupree does it. I won't discount it entirely, especially given the COVID nature, but I think Dupree's going to play this year for that long term deal next year.
No, he's already signed it and has said as much. The only thing. Look, this grievance is just that. It's just a grievance. It'll get settled sooner rather than later here with that. And even if he doesn't win the grievance, he has nothing. He has no reason to hold out. Then I
Hmm.
mean, he's already signed the tender. On top of it there.
True.
So basically, he's under contract. He would be subject to losing money via fines then as well. Now, obviously, the difference with Le'Veon is he is him not signing.
Right. Good point.
So yeah, it would be a monumental and a stupid decision on Bud Dupree's part should he all of a sudden decide he wants to hold out there. I just don't see that happening. Now, obviously, the next line in the sand is a couple of days from now, really less than 48 hours from now, is the deadline for Bud Dupree to be signed to a long-term contract, barring that deadline being moved, which I guess is still a minute possibility here because of what's going on. The NFLPA and the NFL talk still ongoing here. But as of right now, less than 48 hours for the Steelers to sign Dupree to a long-term contract extension, and if they don't, then he has to play underneath the tag for 2020.
Yeah, not seeing that happening. The deadline being pushed back or Dupree getting an extension. John Pennington asks, why do the Steelers share a training camp facility with the Pitt Panthers? Why don't the Panthers have a facility on campus? Thanks. It's a good question. I don't know. I assume it's more economical to do that as such a big facility and generally hasn't been an issue in the past. Obviously, COVID and all that and training camp settings being changed complicates matters this year. But my guess is the Steelers had the facility. It was really nice and there was really no incentive for the Panthers to take that money to build their own separate facility. Mutated genome. What does Connor do better than Snell? With that said, do you think Snell can take over the starting role in 2021 if when Connor leaves? I think he does basically everything better. I mean, I think they're similar styles, but Connor is the better runner, the better receiver, the better blocker. Not that Snell's terrible at those things. Connor's just better. He is more explosive. I think his vision's a bit better. Obviously, he's in better shape because he's an older guy. He understands how to take care of his body, and obviously, you've seen his offseason work this year. Again, no slight against Snell, it's just, Connor's, where Snell could be maybe a couple years from now. So I think Connor's just probably better in every facet and more comfortable being moved around the formation and split out as well than Benny Snell.
I think the biggest thing is to see what kind of physical jump Snell can make.
Right.
We've seen them all do it. From Le'Veon Bell to Connor to Jalen Samuels. I mean, we expect Benny Snell to make a similar kind of physical development this year. I think he's kind of at a poor man Connor stage right now. I mean, your breakdown was great that you did on the site, and going back to what we've said about him since last season ended there were times where you just wish, man, why let him stay in there, get him in the groove, let him
Hmm.
start. He is the type of back, and much like Connor, I think that you got to get him going, and the more, if you start feeding him football, I think he gets stronger as game goes on. Unfortunate matter is we saw so many different backs in that backfield. Now, obviously, Benny Snell missed out a lot, on 2 to 3 weeks there with that knee issue there, and also how big of a grasp of the overall offense did he have? Not A, being a rookie, and B, missing that time with the injury didn't help on top of it. So this, come ask us that same question, Gino, after this season, because I'm sure we're going to still get a pretty decent, sizable look at Snell this year, and it'll be interesting to see how he looks physically, and get another, I don't know, 80 carries underneath him
Hmm.
at least.
And well, that's the second part of his question is, do you think Snell can be basically the starter, assuming Connor's gone next year? And I think that what you said, Dave, is accurate, where it's kind of to be determined, to be answered by what Snell's able to do this year. But it could be very interesting because, while Snell and Anthony McFarland are going to play some, you'll learn more about them. They're not the starters, obviously. So you'll kind of be at a crossroads next year. It'll be very interesting to see how the Steelers approach the backfield, where do they say, assuming Connor's gone, okay, Snell and McFarland are the guys? Maybe we draft another mid-round back for the 11th straight year, or do we go out there and try to invest a first, second, or high third-round pick in the position and make that guy the feature back? Don't know which direction they're going to go. They probably don't know right now either. I think 2020 will be the answer to what direction they want to go.
Is he a 300 touch guy? No, probably not.
Hmm.
I don't see that. Is he a potential 220 to 250 touch guy after this season? That might still be kind of pushing it, but once again, we're going to learn. I have a feeling we're going to learn a lot more about Benny Snell. We just don't have enough on him at the NFL level right
Right.
now. All we got is really his college tape, which there was a lot of good stuff on his college tape there, and we've also seen already in the NFL something he didn't do a lot of at Kentucky, and that was the explosive run. Now, was that it's a small sample size to work with so far, so we just need a little bit of a better sample size, I think, on him, and I think we'll get a little bit of that one way or the other in 2020.
All right, Dave. It is 7:30. It is time to do our James Conner book giveaway. Again, the book is "Fear Is a Choice." I know we've given out a couple copies. The Depot staff has gotten those books, and they've all been very happy with Connor's first debut book. I think you have the question you're going to read this week because I do not have it written down. So, first person to answer the question correctly will win the book. Dave, what is our question of the week?
Yeah, before Joe Green arrived on the scene, there was a player on the Steelers who wore number 75. Who
Sounds like a
was
limerick.
Yeah, who was that player, and what team did the Steelers trade him to after Joe Green was drafted? So I want to know the player who wore number 75 before Joe Green did, and I want to know what team did the Steelers trade him to?
All right.
Two-parter.
Two-parter, got to get both parts. First person to answer both parts correctly gets the book. If you've won before, are not eligible again. Hopefully, someone will be able to answer this. If not, we did write about it on the site the other day, so you can go check it out there. While we wait for an answer to the question, Dave, repeat the question one more time in case someone missed it.
Yeah, Joe Green, of course, arrived on the scene in 1969, and actually, a lot of people don't know that when he did arrive, obviously somebody was already wearing number 75. It resulted in Joe Green having to wear number 72. Imagine how that would look moving forward there.
Hmm.
But regardless, the writing was on the wall that he was going to beat this player out. This player had been with the Steelers a number of years already. I think 4 seasons at the time. Well, he obviously the player who wore number 75 ended up being traded. So we want to know who that player was that wore number 75 when Joe Green arrived on the scene, and where was that player? What team was that player traded to?
Dave, has anyone answered it? There's been a couple of people answering. I want to make sure I don't get this wrong. Has anyone got it correctly yet?
Let me look back in here. See if we have an answer here. I've got. Okay. No, I don't have a full part one and part two yet.
Okay.
I've got some. I got some close answers in here.
Does not look like anyone has the whole complete picture yet.
Right. we, we we're close, folks. We're close.
All right. While we wait for someone to get the full correct answer, I'll go to the next question here briefly. Xcoda says, I see the Steelers going 10-6 in 2020. Ben will have a 3,000-yard season. I think if Ben plays well, the defense plays well, that is the floor on both record and stats. Chris Belock says, think Rudolph is the future in terms of him being the heir to Ben. My gut says right now no, but we'll see how he does. Give him another year to evaluate and see how he bounces back if he does from a difficult 2019. Let's see.
Someone has where he was acquired from. I want to know where he was traded to from the Steelers. All right, we have a correct answer, and it's mutated Geno. Ken Cortis to the Saints. That is the correct answer. Ken Cortis was a former first-round draft pick of the old St. Louis Cardinals as well, too. And after one season in St. Louis, the Steelers traded for him from St. Louis. He played the next, I think, 4 seasons in Pittsburgh with the Steelers, and then he was traded to the New Orleans Saints.
Let me
And
pull the article.
and he didn't last long. He was ultimately waived by them, and then he signed. He signed back with his hometown Chicago Bears team.
All right, so congrats to Mutated Genome. His birthday today. He gets James Garner's book, Fears of Choice. Yeah, we had some people that got Ken. We had a lot of people who had Ken Cortis correct, but had the team wrong. So that was the issue there. But Mutated Genome gets it right.
Show him in the article
Mhm.
who he was traded with there, Alex.
Yep. Let's see. They traded quarterback.
Don Shy.
What's that?
Cortis was traded away along with like
Right.
Don Shy.
Yeah, Don Shy in exchange for halfback Don McCall. So that was 2 weeks before the start of the '69 season, before Green came in. All right. So
Mark
congrats.
Leslie. Mark Leslie says, "Tough question. Glad I won last week." Mark, you're the one in England, I think, right? Your book's busy swimming right now. I'm pretty sure. So give it a little bit of extra time. I had to send one to Daniel up in Canada, and that one just got there. I think it took like 3 weeks for it to get to Canada there. So congratulations, Gino. I want to make these kind of questions a little bit tough and make sure you guys are reading Steelers Depot, right?
And Dave, tell Mutated Genome how we can contact you to get the book.
Yeah, Gino, send me an email to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Tell me you won the book. Give me a good mailing address, and I'll get that out by the weekend for you, brother.
All right, congrats to all of our winners. Going back to our questions, Pop345, do you think Edmonds will step up? It's hard to say. I mean, Dupree had that just, breakout season. We kind of thought that we didn't know if it was ever going to happen, but Edmonds does not feel like he has those innate ball skills like Minka Fitzpatrick or a Troy or a Joe Hayden. So it's hard to see Edmonds check that box in that sense. But if he can create a little bit of splash and continue to be a steady tackler, I'll be happy. Let's see. Xcoda says we need Ryan Fitzpatrick. Well, a lot of backup quarterbacks. People have been trying to get to Pittsburgh. Don't think it's going to happen. Greg Smith asks Bud Dupree over under 10 sacks in 2020. He went over last year. I think he'll do it again. It may not be significantly over, and there's always a little bit of regression and some play there. But I think Dupree will hit double digit sacks, and of course, I think T.J. Watt can be around the 15 sack mark in 2020.
What did you think about him being ranked number 7 on the Edge list on ESPN today?
It felt low because it was low. Although looking at the list, I mean that's some heavy competition. I probably would have put him above Vaughn, probably above Joey Bosa. I understand though him being ranked a little bit low because there are some great names on that list, like of course Khalil Mack, Chandler Jones has been criminally underrated. So I think Watt should have been a little bit higher than where he ultimately ended up.
Yeah, I do as well too. I mean, you can make obviously top 5 for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
From there, look. I mean, no, who has more sacks? I think only what I read this morning. Only one player. I think Calais is it Campbell that has more sacks than he does in the last 3 years here, and none of them have more forced fumbles in
hmm
the last 3 or 2 years.
Right.
Really,
It's Chandler Jones and Cameron Jordan have more sacks than him.
Chandler Jones. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think Watt's got to be right up there and higher than where they listed him. Let's see. Going back to the questions here, Papa Beano's 2-1. How do you feel about Bud Dupree's grievance? I personally don't like him anymore because that's showing me that he's a Le'Veon Bell type. As Dave said earlier, I agree wholeheartedly. I have no problem with a player trying to get paid money, especially when the team tagged him in the first place. It's not like it wasn't even in Dupree's control. So I have no ill will to Dupree's attempt here.
Yeah, who has that?
Papa Beano's 2-1.
Go back and listen to the first early part of the podcast. We go all over it there for you there. So this will be up. We'll have this will obviously be archived here on YouTube. And if you want to listen to the audio version of that, we'll have that posted later on tonight too. But we spent a good 15 minutes on that
hmm
at the start of the show there. But no, he's not greedy. It's in his right to do it. I would do it. All of you would do it if you knew the particulars of how the CBA was written on this, and when you look at the actual snap breakdown and of everything. This has nothing to do whether or not he deserves it. It's all about positional snaps and where he took them at, and the differential between the tag amounts for a defensive end and linebacker. So don't nobody should take issue with Bud Dupree.
Todd Williams says, "Hey guys, hope all is well. Don't laugh at my question, but do you think their coaches have any hopes for Paxton Lynch, possibly a dark horse?" No, Todd, that's not a question to laugh at all. At all, I think Paxton's got a good chance to come in and compete. I think the coaching staff likes Paxton Lynch, they like the pedigree. I think he's got a chance to become the number 3 quarterback. Now, again, it goes back to what kind of an opportunity will you have for that? Based on lack of preseason, lack of an offseason. But I think he's going to be fighting Duck all this summer.
Here's the thing: it's gonna be it's the end of Paxton Lynch's NFL career if he can't beat out Duck. For the number 3 spot this year. And why didn't that happen last year? I think a late arrival, everything that went along with that. And look, I mean, Duck was there for the whole, pretty much all of what training camp and the off season program there. Now, since then, the thing that's got us, at least me thinking that Paxton's going to be the number 3 over Devlin Hodges, and really it's only a guess because we haven't seen obviously Paxton practice or anything like that or play in the game. It's just the way kind of the context that Kevin Colbert talked about him. Most of the offseason, he sure volunteered a lot of positive information on Paxton Lynch, sort of unsolicited, if you will, there. So should be a good battle, but where I stand right now, and it's really speculation only because once again we haven't seen him play in the Steelers uniform, is that Paxton Lynch will grab that number 3 spot over Devlin Hodges, but it most definitely could go either way.
Yeah, and if it is just coming down to practice and there really is no preseason or lack of an opportunity, Paxton's probably going to look better than Duck in practice. Although Duck obviously looked good in practice last year, but Paxton has just the arm where it's going to wow you. So good battle there.
That clip that I showed on Twitter this past week, the finale against Baltimore, right? The deep ball to Deontay Johnson down the left side. That should have been 6,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Duck missed it.
and Duck just didn't have, and look, it was rainy. I'm sure the weather was heavy, that night. But if you want a good sign of one of the negativities, I guess, about Devlin Hodges, it was that play and that play alone. Now, obviously, you can go through and there's other one. Look, he throws a nice out route over to the sideline, gets that ball out quick and on target in those situations. But I think the overall arm strength, deep ball stuff is the stuff that gets Devlin Hodges in trouble there.
Mhm. Yeah, he's got a willingness to go deep, but the arm doesn't always support the willingness is the issue for with him. All right, guys, be sure to continue to leave your Steelers questions in the chat below. Dave and I will be here for about another 20 minutes. Jamal Curtis says, "I feel like 2020 is the year to win, and after this year, we enter a dark age with all these contracts expiring." I wouldn't frame it as a dark age, but point taken, Jamal, because there are a lot of players that are going to lose. But as long as you have Ben, you're going to have a chance. You won't enter that dark age until Ben retires.
And look, you're going to lose pieces of this defense, like it or not, after this season. I mean, this is you want to talk about a prime. Everybody should be hoping this season doesn't get canceled right now,
Hmm.
or because this team really is set up for a nice season right now. Obviously, a lot of it's going to depend on Ben making sure he stays healthy, can rebound from that elbow. But as we've said, I mean, almost obnoxiously now, nauseously to this point, this defense should be expected to be a top 3, if not top defense in the NFL this year, and that's even with the loss of Javon Hargrave there. So if you have a top 3 defense here, and if you have 95%. 98% of the Roethlisberger from, let's say, 2018 with maybe a tad bit more deep ball accuracy, there's no reason to think that this team can't make a run.
Absolutely. Brandon Rito asks, "Not much going on in sports right now, so prediction on team captains next year." So I assume you're saying 2021. I don't know. Cam, Pouncey. I assume Pouncey's going to be here still, and Watt maybe. I'm not sure what direction to go with this one yet.
Yeah, 2021. Geez, I would assume Hayward's going to be there. He'd be defensive captain,
Mm-hmm.
offensive captain. I think Ben's going to be still around 2021,
All right. Yeah.
so he would be a captain and special teams captain. I mean, who
Boz.
Boz or I don't know. Cam Kennedy might be an old veteran by about then. He's on the field a lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes they've gone without a special teams captain too. Could be Derek Watt. Maybe it'll be Watt. we can get both Watts out there somehow. I'm not sure. We'll see. That's a question that hopefully can be asked a year from now. I'm just trying to think about getting football this year is kind of my main concern. Jamal Curtis, how does the NFL draft work if the college season is canceled? Good question. Never
Yeah,
happened
good
before.
question.
Hopefully we don't have to cross that bridge. I think it'd be very interesting. Not only if not just if the season was canceled, but even if they push it to the spring, which I don't think is going to happen. But if they did, that would impact obviously a lot too. So we have no idea.
No idea. I'm not even. I mean, I could guess, and my guess would probably be wrong.
Yeah.
So when it gets to that, let's just keep your fingers crossed that we get some semblance of college football in.
Yeah, that's the hope. Pop345. A few days ago, I saw your vid about the big mistake of Keith Butler against the Ravens in Week 5. Do you think that Keith Butler is a good DC or the defense is playing good because he has talent? I think that was a personnel matching issue. That was a while ago. I did that video. Obviously, I think Butler's gotten better, and I don't want to not give him any credit because the defense obviously improved by leaps and bounds last year. But again, it's helped that this team has invested so much in the defense. It's been absurd. No team has invested the way the Steelers have, both through the draft and through free agency, and at least money based on relatively, how little they spend during free agency. So when you have so many first rounders and so much top tier talent, you better play well. So I can't give Butler all the credit either because they've invested every resource into making this defense a top one.
It's half of the chicken and half of the egg, right?
I think it's a little less than half. I think I give the majority edge to the talent and the investment than Butler.
They do have that.
Yeah, they got a lot of talent for sure. Matt Tiffany says, "Good evening, guys. Good evening, Matt." Greg Smith says, "Does Isaiah Palomeo? I'm not sure if it's the same last name as Troy, but come close in any aspect talent wise to the great Troy." I saw you tweeted about it the other day, Dave. You probably answer this better than I can.
Yeah, I just watched. I've just barely watched any of him.
Yeah,
You
I,
know, so,
I think it's fair to say very few players come even close to matching Troy's talent.
yeah, I mean, I see people already trying to link it together and say this is the guy that the Steelers are slam dunk to draft. And look, I mean, we're still way far away. We don't have even comparisons yet. We haven't dug deep down into his tape at all, and know who else is out there, those kind of things. So, it's okay to evaluate players at this stage right now of the offseason, I think. But to kind of predict it with the draft this far out and all, to me is just foolish.
But speaking of Troy, I really like the article you wrote today at Troy's Instagram post, which you don't. This is the most I've ever heard Troy talk, basically,
Oh
even
boy,
in an
yeah.
Instagram post. So this was a cool thing you guys should check out on the website. Isaiah, is
I,
he?
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear his Hall of Fame speech, man.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I wonder if it's going to be super long or super short, or just wonder what the approach is going to be. This Isaiah guy, what year is he? He's at USC, right? Is he a junior, sophomore? Do we know
I'll have
what
to look.
class he is? He's not a senior, is he?
I don't think he
Okay.
is.
I don't know really anything about him clearly, but I'd just be curious to what people talking about potentially drafting him and connecting him to the Steelers. While you look that up, Jamal Curtis asked on Juju's stream, he said he'd ask for a 6-year, 150 million deal. If that's true, he's gone. I wouldn't take much stock into anything Juju says on a Twitch stream or whatever he's doing. I don't think that's him being honest. I think he's just joking around and being Juju.
Yeah, I do too. Let's see. Redshirt Junior.
Okay.
Let's see. Rangy. Free. Let's see. Rangy Paul returns as a starting free safety as a junior in 2020.
Okay, so he would be draft eligible if he did want to declare early.
Hmm.
We'll see if he does. We have a super chat here from Travis Herco. Thank you so much, Travis, for the super chat. Who is
Thanks,
more
Travis.
who is more important to extend a big offer to when the time comes, Juju or Minka? Well, they're going to happen. They could happen at different times. Minka, I think, is the guy that you absolutely cannot let get away. But as we said, Dave, if Juju has the bounce back year that I think we both believe he's going to have, then you probably don't want to let him go either. But in terms of who's the more valuable player, I mean, it's got to be Minka.
Right. I mean, more valuable. Right. Well, here's the thing. I mean, you don't. It's not an either or an
Right.
or right now.
That's it. Yeah. Exactly.
Because Minka is still early on in his career right now. So,
Mhm.
in fact, this will be what, year 3 for Minka,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, you got some time.
You couldn't extend him now if you wanted to.
Is it after 3 years you can do
It's
an extension?
after 3
Okay.
years, right? You even if you wanted to sign Minka to a contract extension right now, you couldn't because in the CBA, these rookies have to play at least 3 years before they get these draft picks have to play 3 years before they get extended here. So you couldn't do anything right now if you wanted to with him.
Okay.
So and then obviously he's going to be a 5th year option candidate come the time. Which will be a year from now, right?
Mhm.
So that means that pushes off the ultimate payday, another year off from there. So by then you will long have already made a decision on Juju. By then, assuming he does not get a deal done between now and the start of the regular season, which is hard to imagine that happening. Next off season is going. You'll either decide to you'll have a few options here. You could try to sign Juju to some sort of contract extension prior to him becoming a free from the end of the season to the start of free agency, which is very very rare. I just don't see such a thing happening, but it's not impossible. And really, the only other option that you would have is to place the franchise tag on him in February ahead of the start of the new league year in March, and then after you tag him, try to work out a contract extension with him next summer. So you're already it's not an either or situation here with Juju or Minka. It's really the biggest probably either or maybe that you're going to get into is maybe a Juju or Connor, and
Mhm.
that's really out there. Both guys are in the final year of their contract. You're probably not going to put the franchise tag on Connor either way. So really it all comes down to Juju and his 2020 season and whether or not you're probably going to want to franchise tag him or not.
Yep, I'm with you 100%. Mark Leslie asked, do you think a lack of fans, if any, are allowed at all, will make a big difference to teams and how they play? Again, difficult question to answer because it's never happened before. Yeah, I think there's obviously going to be an effect. There's an intangible and emotional, momentum feeling standpoint of the benefit of what your crowd gives you. Your home crowd makes it tough on an opposing offense. They got to go silent count. But, if there are no fans, and the defense and the coaching staff can basically hear every signal that's being called by the offense, maybe you do switch to a silent count still because you don't want to have any audible cues that give things away. So, very interesting question, a good question. Unfortunately, I can't give you a great answer other than to say that it's going to affect all teams equally, and they all have to deal with it this season.
I would say anytime an offense has the ability to communicate better, the advantage goes to an offense.
Yeah,
Period.
I think that's fair. But it would be interesting for the defense to hear everything clearly as well, and how the defense could benefit from that potentially.
Sure, and obviously offenses will have to change some stuff up, probably a little bit more so than they already do or don't do now,
Hmm.
you know. But I would think anytime you have complete communication situation, it would always benefit the offense
Yeah,
more.
that's fair. And then I retract partially what I just said is that maybe it wouldn't affect all teams equally because if the NFL bases, fans being allowed based on locality, and if your cases in your particular, city and town and area are low versus somewhere where it's high and they can't have any fans, that could be a difference. Where some, teams may have a quarter fans or a third fans versus some stadiums that won't have any fans. So there could be a difference there. Very interesting. Don't know the answer to how that's going to go. Let me scroll back up through the questions here. Last couple of minutes of the live stream. Let's see. Patrick Jones asks, he says Trey Edmonds, but I believe he means Terrell Edmonds get benched for Marcus Allen or Antoine Brooks or even Cam Sutton, who I love. No, I think Edmonds is going to be a starter. And unless he absolutely falls on his face, he's going to remain in that starting role. Were you going to add anything, Dave, or
I
you
was just
agree?
going to say it's not impossible for him to get benched, but it'd be highly
Hmm.
he would really have to he'd really have to have a really really down first half of the season
Yeah.
season for that to happen.
And the talent behind him is poor with Allen and Brooks, guys who's trying to make the team. I mean, Sutton is not a strong safety either. He's going to play the run and be in the box consistently. So not a lot of great options right now either. It could be Jordan Dangerfield if anyone, coming in for Terrell Edmonds, or if there's an injury. Pop 345. I like the guy out of Alabama to be our running back. If Connor has a bad year, what do you think? I know Bama has backs every year. I'm not sure who you're talking about. I have not gotten into draft stuff. Dave, any insight there?
Nah, I haven't even look. I mean, we live we're living in the 2020 Steelers world right now.
Yeah. Talk to us a couple months from now, Pop. Playdad0112. Hey, Dave and Alex. Or hey, Alex and Dave, I should say. I don't understand why Steeler fans are upset with Dupree filing that grievance. I actually think he has a point and hope he can win. I think that echoes our thoughts. I'm not upset about it, but I understand Steeler fans and just fans in general can get mad when players ask for more money and hold out, especially given the COVID pandemic and job loss and economic problems and all that doesn't help matters in this situation. But I hold no grudge against Dupree.
People build up biases to people. I mean, to certain players, and they'll live and die by those biases. They'll create narratives, whatever they need to create to anything they'll quote off to try to protect the narrative in that situation. Fact of the matter is, this is part of business end of the NFL here. He has every right to file this grievance. He's got, as we stated at the top of the show, a pretty decent case in doing this. This is no slight really against the Steelers overall. It's just it's a mechanism allowed for him to potentially get money that he deserves through what's listed in the CBA. So once again, I think personally, I think the way to compromise here is do what the Ravens did with Judon, and that's offer the split the difference of the price and let that be his tag number. So we'll see what happens here.
Steeler fan 1933 says 47 viewers, 8 likes. Come on, people. Yeah, if you could like the stream, I don't know how many likes we're up to now. We're up to 12. That would be appreciated because it does help get more eyes on the stream.
Treat this as if I'm not part of it, and then like it that way.
No, I should like it with Dave, especially if Dave's here. You should like the video, like the stream. Patrick Jones, why it's taken so long for Marcus Allen? Well, he was a fifth round pick. There's no guarantee that those guys ever work out. Last year was a step backwards, being on the practice squad for most of the year until Cam Kelly's arrest. He's a guy that's got to make his mark on special teams. He's played like 20 snaps on special teams in 2 years, and I think has 3 total tackles, even including preseason. So that's where he's got to start. That's where he's got to make his mark, and that'll allow him to climb the ladder. Jason Tatum, week one, empty backfield. Who's on the field? Well, empty backfield does not always mean 5 wide. I know it kind of gets associated with that, but you can be. This team's been in 12 personnel before and been empty. So, but if we assume the question is how, like basically who are going to be like the fifth and sixth receivers on the field, then I think Switzer's got an inside track to make it, and I'll play it safe with Dion Kane. Although I think Penn State Saeed Blacknall is an interesting guy at the back end of the roster. Dave, any thoughts on back end of the depth chart receivers?
Yeah, I mean, I think Blacknall has a chance. Maybe Kane. You know,
Mm-hmm.
obviously going to be in the running there. Switch
Switzer.
Ryan Switzer. Gonna definitely have a good. But look, with no off season. Right now, no off-season program at all, and with potentially preseason, maybe even being 0 games, all that bodes well for in the favor of a guy like Ryan Switzer, like it or not. Look, I'm hoping somebody can step up and make him expendable, but it's going to be tough to
Mm-hmm.
knock him off the roster. You know,
Yeah. Travis Herco, another super chat, very, very generous of you, Travis, says, what are Dave's true thoughts on the prior to Pittsburgh talk? We've seen
oh
Dave's Twitter
Lord,
feed and the article I pulled up here. You would know, but Dave, take it away.
oh Lord, Travis, you trying to fire me up here? You want this thing to go another hour long, don't you? Look, I just don't see it. Look, it's so look. Pryor's been trying to get signed by a team, and go back to even last November. He was on reaching out on social media saying, "Boy, I want to land with the Steelers. If the Steelers need somebody, look, this ship has already sailed. The guys, I think 31 now. The off the field domestic issue that he had just this past November's not going to do him any favors. He really didn't. It really didn't stick out. He's been injury, kind of had those injury issues there the last couple years on top of here. Just no time either. I mean, these teams might not even carry 90-man rosters during training camp because of all the fallout from the coronavirus and all. So how are you going to bring a guy in that quick? And look, he don't play special teams. You got to your bottom of the end wide receivers better be able to help in special teams in some area. He's never done that before. It just the odds are just so stacked against him. And I know he mentioned the Steelers or maybe the Patriots in that TMZ video and all like that. I know because I transcribed it there. But I'll be shocked if any team signs him here before the start of training camp. And even if he does sign with the team, he's got a huge uphill battle to make a final roster this year. I just don't see it. I just cannot make any good case whatsoever for him landing in Pittsburgh.
I think you got your money's worth on that one, Travis. I like
Whew.
your intro to the article you wrote. No, I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers will sign free agent receiver
Yeah,
Terrell
yeah.
Bryan.
I didn't bury the lead there, did I?
It was not clickbait. You were very direct there, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think that there's no reason or interest or compelling reason for this team to sign Terrell Pryor. All right, couple more here before we wrap up the stream. Jamal Curtis says, "Is it possible next year the Steelers draft Trey Lance?" And I will not read the second part of that question because I'm not going to get Ron Burgundy. But for Trey Lance, if the analysts think he's as good as if he plays as well as the analysts think he is with no interceptions last year from North Dakota State, probably wouldn't make it to wherever the Steelers are picking. But Steelers, probably not. Safe bet would be no, obviously. Lord Moon, anybody else think the new policy about not being able to swap jerseys at the end of the game is dumb? I mean, they're making contact all game long. Seriously, yeah, I think it's silly. I think it's just a principle of the matter thing. I'm less frustrated about that being a rule and the fact that there are so many other big questions that have yet to be answered by the NFL, and that's the thing that they made sure to tackle pretty early on.
Yeah, here we are Monday already. I was hoping a lot of this would be put to bed by
Mhm.
Friday, and here we are Monday, and we still don't have any more clarity. And now I guess there's some small rumblings that maybe even training camps won't open up on time. We'll see. I'll hope that we'll learn a little bit more this week. Maybe by this time next week we'll have a little bit more clarity about what to expect. But man, they sure are going right up against the
Mhm.
against the moment here.
Yeah, longer they wait, I think the smaller the odds are that things stay on schedule. We'll see. John Pennington, if there's no college football, how do the NFL conduct a draft? We were asked that earlier. We don't know. I mean, nobody knows, I think, right now how that's going to go. Eric McDay, who is the starting tight end currently? Vance or Ebron? What is the playing percentage? I think technically it'll be Vance, but I think they're basically interchangeable. I believe the hope would be that both play about 50% of the time, so about 500 snaps for each guy, and you could really, flip a coin to who you want to be called the starting tight end.
I agree.
Isaac, what about TJ Watt? I'm not sure what that was in reference to. It's probably part of an earlier conversation. So I apologize, Isaac. I'm not quite sure what you're asking here. Maybe that's in context with Dupree and D end. I'm not quite sure. I apologize. Mark Jackson, bottom line, Tomlin can't have another average season. If so, what's the fallout? We talked about this, I think, on a streamer podcast the other day, Dave. Like, what if they just miss the playoffs again? What happens to Tomlin? I don't think he would get fired, but the justification for the hot seat would become a lot more justified than it is right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously, if it's not an injury, if a season full of injuries that you can point to at specifics, you should have some good depth, especially on the defensive side of the ball. That knock on wood, you be able to afford, be able to get by past an injury or two. Same, on offense, as long as it's not your quarterback or maybe your skill positions there on top of it there. So I think the context of a what I think the whole context of the season would have to be dissected, and assuming that it's not injury related, then yeah, you'd have to, as you and I have said, look, should be, I think, considered at worst a 10-16,
Yep.
at worst. So that's our low expectations. I think where we're at right now. So anything lower than that, and once again, if it's not heavily injury related, then yeah, I think you really got to take a look at it. But even so, I think it would be one final mulligan for Mike Tomlin. Something drastic like a 3-13 or just something off the wall crazy, I think would have to happen for him to lose his job after the 2020 season. I think at worst he'd coach one more season in 2021 in order to right the ship. But once
Mhm.
again, I think something crazy would have to happen in 2020 outside of it, injuries and all for him to lose his job. But
And
it's something you need have a lot of concern if you fail to make the playoffs the way this team is shaping up right now.
And the point you made on the podcast was you're not going to change head coaches as Ben's still here for like a final year. You're not going to
Right.
revamp and start from the ground. floor up. A couple more questions. Pop 345. Who will replace Javon Hargrave? Well, as a nickel pass rusher, Stephon Tuitt as a 3-4 nose tackle. Probably Tyson. What's his last name? Alualu.
Alu, alu, alu.
Okay, I still get it. I still have to pause every time I think about it.
I don't
Um,
think there's really a wrong way to say it, but evidently we say it wrong for some people's likings.
yeah, but I don't think it'll be Big Dan. I don't think it can be Big Dan. I'm still doing that video. I know I keep saying it. It's planned. It just hasn't happened yet. But Big Dan cannot be this team starting nose tackle. AJC, does Des Bryant have more chances getting on a team than Pryor? Yes. I will say confidently
Yes.
yes. Javon 478, how good or bad is Ebron's tape? I mean, that's a pretty vague way to look at it. As a blocker, he's obviously going to struggle, but can he do well as a move tight end, as a stand up tight end, basically, and a red zone threat? He can definitely be a threat there. I think he had, 11 red zone touchdowns 2 years ago. So that's what he was brought in to do, and I think he can do that job very well. Let's see. Pop 345 says I think that Vance will be used in the run game. I think he's more apt to be used there than Ebron, though Vance was a terrible blocker last year. And finally, from Luke, Steelers Discord loves you, Alex. Oh, Luke, thank you very much. Tell Steelers Discord I love them too. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for the Monday live stream. As always, we're back next Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Dave, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Peace and love, everybody. Thanks for coming along for the hour-long ride tonight.
And thank you everybody who participated in the chat. Congrats to our winner of James Connor's book, Mutated Genome. Yeah, thank you guys for being here. Really good crowd on hand. And again, we'll be back in a week with our Steelers live stream. Thanks, guys. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.